Well, hello and welcome everybody here to this is getting to be a pretty regular occurrence here on Outside Comfort Zone. We are on a live stream talking to tonight Andrea Lani. She is the author of Uphill Both Ways, Hiking Toward Happiness on the Colorado Trail. And this is, if you are a reader and a hiker, it is an absolute must read. It is one of my favorite hiking books, and without a doubt, my favorite book about hiking the Colorado Trail specifically. Lani is a two-time CT completer, and one of the more interesting details about this sort of double completion is that she has had the rare opportunity to have seen segment 2 pre and post burn. And so when you do pick up your copy of Uphill Both Ways, I just really look forward to that section that talks about area 2 or segment 2, because I think you're going to get it's a real treat to see someone who's experienced both sides of that. So Andrea Lani is an incredible writer. She put a chapter of the Colorado More Than Hope. I meant to have one of these out, but if you all are watching me, you know that I'm a little bit disorganized from time to every single moment of every day. And I'll get this book out here in a second, I promise everybody. She has the opening chapter of More Than Hope, Lessons from the Colorado Trail, and her chapter is the 8 kinds of joy on the Colorado Trail. And for those of you who are new to this channel, or if you love hiking, this is a chapter here that is just one of the best ways to kind of sum up the experience, or really kind of figure out how to love the experience of hiking. So again, I can't recommend this writing enough. We'll talk a lot about writing and the writing process through the course of this conversation. But once again, this is More Than Hope, Lessons from the Colorado Trail. There are 11 different authors have contributed chapters to share their experiences hiking the trail. And one of those authors that I knew was the first invitation I sent to craft a chapter. We will welcome her in right away. This is Andrea Lani, author of Uphill Both Ways and the 8 kinds of joy on the Colorado Trail. How are you doing from Maine?
I'm doing great. Thanks so much for having me, Jared. I'm really excited to be here.
Absolutely. Well, I'm really excited to have you here. And I know there are folks in the chat who will start commenting shortly. I know there are folks who are familiar with your work, and really well-received your chapters. I've gotten really great feedback about all the chapters, but I've gotten specific messages about yours and how nicely done it was, and some of the drawings we'll talk about as well. So let's start at the beginning. Or my beginning of understanding some of your work, right? So you wrote Uphill Both Ways, which is it's a memoir of you hiking the trail with your 3 sons and your partner, and 2 of them are twins. And you took off with them when they were relatively young to be through hikers, right?
Yep.
So you did.
The twins were 11 and my older son was 15. So
That's
not
great.
babies, but still kids.
Very much so. Very much so. And so talk to me a little bit about the process of, you complete this hike. It's sort of epic. You do it over the course of, I believe, 6 weeks to 2 months, give or take. Lots of planning and preparation, lots of ups and downs, emotionally speaking, and sort of growing personally and relationally with your family. And then did you decide before the hike to do a book about it? Or was this a post, like a reflection? You thought, you know what, I'm going to write about this later?
The hike was kind of a pretext for writing a book. I had we hiked the trail in 2016, and I had completed an MFA in creative writing in 2014.
Okay.
And I was coming to the end of my MFA program that January, and I'd been writing short stories in fiction and not really getting any traction with publication, and feeling both like burnt out with writing and also kind of frustrated, like I wasn't getting anywhere with actually completing work that was being well received. And at the same time, my kids were in that, they were like 8 and 13 at the time, which is, or 8 and 12, I guess. And, they're not so cute anymore. And, you're just running to baseball practice and soccer practice and trying to get them to do their homework and brush their teeth and not kill their brother. And then I was working a job that was not very satisfying at the time, to put it mildly. So all of these factors were kind of working together to make me feel like I needed to run away from home. And so I was like, wouldn't it be cool to write a book 20, to hike the Colorado Trail 20 years after the first time my husband and I did it, and then write a book comparing those two different hikes. And so I
Mhm.
started scheming, and it took 2 years of, the 2 years to get to that 20-year anniversary of planning and organizing and talking my husband and kids into actually doing this with me.
Yep.
Um, so the book was an idea right from the beginning,
Okay.
and that was kind of my excuse. Like, if we go on this hike, I can write a book.
Yep.
Somehow my husband bought that eventually.
Yeah. I managed to do the same with that, hiking it last year with all the gear to make a short film, and I'm finally making some traction on that, thank goodness. But it is amazing how tethering an adventure to an art project seems to get a little more buy-in than just having the
Yeah.
adventure, right?
Whatever excuse you can come up with.
Right. There has to be sort of a late capitalist analysis of the like need to be productive through a hobby that is inherently unproductive, right?
Yeah.
That's great. And so you and your partner hiked the trail sort of early. So that was in
Hmm.
it was in 96, was it?
96. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. So early in your relationship, I mean, not early in the sort of the trail's lifespan, but
Right. Yes.
yeah.
Yes. We'd graduated college in 1995. We both attended College of the Atlantic in Bar Harbor, Maine. And we started dating the week after graduation. We both had stayed the summer, planned to stay the summer in Bar Harbor, independent of each other. And then we, um, had a summer of like hiking together all over Acadia National Park and sea kayaking with, like in the sunset with, herring, like silvery herring. It was all very romantic.
Yeah.
And then he moved home to where he lives in central Maine. We're kind of pretty close to where we live now. And I moved back to Colorado and did almost a year in the AmeriCorps. And that's when I learned about the Colorado Trails, when I was back home. Like, I grew up in Denver area, and then I returned for this AmeriCorps stint. And I found a book about the Colorado Trail, I think, in Barnes and Noble or something. And I was like, oh, that sounds fun. Let's do that. And this was 1996, so I wrote a letter and mailed it to Curry and said, hey, you want to do this with me?
Oh, did I mess something up there?
Late. Oh, did we have a glitch?
We had a glitch. It was my fault because I was trying to make sure the chat was working. So
Oh, okay.
I think you're good. I think everything's
Okay,
fine.
good.
I think I'm just making mistakes over here.
Okay.
Yeah. And so you all took off, and I was mentioning you. I'm sure you heard. I was talking a little bit about. I mean, there were a lot of favorite parts, right? I love the. I mean, I had just read your book when I think my first son was born. And so looking ahead, there were all those nights, particularly the sort of discussion of the end of the day and sort of the unpacking like everything that happened, and sitting in a stinky tent with three growing boys, and adults who are probably not smelling super great as well. But that's sort of the end of the day ritual of kind of being in the tent together. Um, and so tell me a little bit about like what you learned specifically about getting people to. I mean, you got them on the trail, and full disclosure, I'm asking selfishly. My dream is, we have a running joke in my house that my boys are going to be triple crowners when they finish middle school, because I'm going to pull them out of school, homeschool them on the trails, and we're going to spend a year doing each of the big three. And I need to know how to encourage in such a way that doesn't lead them to absolutely hating me, hating hiking, hating
Yeah.
that sort of thing. So do you have any pro tips as a parent who's, and your boys still hike? They still, didn't one of your sons do the Camino this year as well?
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. While we were on the trail, they were delightful. They, every picture, they had these huge smiles. I mean, we all had our rough moments, believe me. But for the most part, they were very easygoing, very energetic, very, the person who probably had the most difficulty with the physicality of the trail and also just the mental breakdowns was probably me. But so they were great on the hike, and then the minute we got home, they were like, "That was the worst summer of my life. Don't ever make me go hiking again." So but they, over time when they could have more agency over those choices, like they and my husband hiked the 100-mile wilderness a couple of years after we did the Colorado Trail. One of my sons, climbs Mount Katahdin once a year with his friends. My other son has done 2 sections of the Camino, and the other one keeps starting backpacking trips that he doesn't finish. I think it's because he doesn't get the views that you get in Colorado. I'm going to blame it on that.
It could be a little
East Coast.
tougher. Yeah. And as long as he's still trying, it'll likely come together.
Yeah. Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
So as far as advice, bring lots of food, way more food than you think you need. Like all they did was talk about food and let them, I kind of was trying to feed them a lot of healthy food, like, nutrition dense food. And we should have brought a lot more junk food. I definitely should have brought, we went stoveless, which made everyone miserable. Don't do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
It saves a lot of weight, but just bring a goat to carry your stove if you have to.
Sure.
And I think giving them control over it, giving them agency, and giving them lots of treats. But it was a really great experience. I think, it was like the time we were closest as a family, because they had been, one kid was had finished a year of high school. The other two were about to become teenagers, or on the cusp of becoming teenagers, and so they were already kind of stretching away from us, and so to have a whole summer where the 5 of us could just really hang out together and spend a lot of close time talking and reading in the tent, like they got to be goofy, and like silly in a way that I think is harder to do around friends when you're at that age. You're like trying to be cool, and they could let go of all that, but they also got more matured at the same time. They could, they followed the trail without getting lost. They filtered water. They set up tents. Like they learned a lot of that. They got some responsibilities, and so and then they got to be close to each other. There's a 4-year age gap between the oldest and the twins, and so they were never really at the same developmental stage. So they so it was great. I don't know. It was, if you can do it with your kids, go for it. But don't be surprised if they get home and say it was the worst summer of their lives.
Yeah. It's interesting. My 2 boys, they're very young, but their personalities are so different. And I think they'll both love hiking, but for very different reasons and in different ways. And so I'm very excited to think about, what that might look like, and, and how that might kind of take shape. And I'm half joking when I say I'll pull them out and hike the trails with them, but if they show interest, I'd be willing to give it a shot.
Yeah.
We do have a comment here, and this is from Rose, and she actually, if this is the right person, she said she just finished her book this week, and she says she cringes thinking of satisfying young men's eating needs.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, as a person whose trail name is Snackbox, I feel like I can figure it out, but it's going to require a lot more town days and airdropping in Snickers. I think that will be.
Yeah. I did end up, like parceling my snack, because it was very important to me that my kids not lose weight on this hiking trail. Like that felt like that would be, irresponsible on my part. So when, my oldest son, who was 15, just was like this calorie consuming machine. So, after the first week or so, we just, every time we went to town, we bought like 20 extra Cliff Bars for him.
Yeah.
And then, one of the twins just ate constantly, just kind of as a way to keep himself busy while he was walking down the trail, because it's kind of like,
that's a sunflower
boredom,
seeds
but,
moment.
a thing to do. So, so he'd run out of snacks really quick, and the other one would hoard his, and then he'd get hangry. So I just would be like, eat my snacks. Here, I have extra snacks, please.
That's really funny.
But but I think even now that they're in their early 20s, I don't even know how they would feed themselves on a trail. They eat so much food.
Yeah, it's hard to tell, right? So tell me a little bit then. So let's pivot a little bit back to writing.
Yeah.
And I'm curious a little bit about can we start with just your basic writing process, if there is one? And bearing in mind that these are also likely to be deeply personal, and for me, very frustrating. It's as frustrating as it is rewarding. And I have a raging case of ADHD that I've made no secret. And so when the dopamine is there, I can write a lot, and sometimes good, not often. But for other people, I'm always curious to hear what that process is like, what's worked for you, what hasn't worked,
Well,
etc.
well, I would, I'd love to know that too. What is my process? It feels like I have to relearn it every time I start a new piece. It really helps me to be in a physical place and focus on specifics. So right now I'm working on writing an essay about a river that we live close by. And, I spent a lot of time kind of like, what is a river? Kind of thinking these weird, like abstract, like college students late at night with cheap wine sort of thoughts. And then I finally was just like, go sit by the river and write down like what just sensory details and what's happening. And that's, that specificity and close observation and attention is a really great place to start. And even if that doesn't end up being the starting place of the piece of writing, it's a good starting place for my brain. So for instance, when I was writing the essay for the book, the More Than Hope, I couldn't do that because I live in Maine and I couldn't just be like, and it was also like, I think it was early spring when you sent out the call. So, everything was very deep in snow. And I'm like, what I really need to do is go for a long hike so I can start thinking, because you sent out the request. And I was like, yes, I'd love to do that. Sounds great. And then I was like, wait a minute, what am I going to say? I've said everything I have to say about the Colorado Trail in this book I wrote. So I struggled, I battled with that a lot. And then I kind of, you can see in the way each section I wrote, I kind of mentally took myself to like a certain moment on the trail and described that and let that lead into each sub theme of that essay. So, go into the natural world, walk, move your body, and close attention to the details, and is kind of the thing I always come back to and start with. But I have to remind myself to do that.
Yeah, that's a good point too, because I found often when I hit writer's block, it's part of just the executive functioning issues that I've had generally, but it does help me to think more about like, all right, what exactly is this block and what would I tell someone else to do? And so in your case, specifically thinking through like I'm stuck or I don't know what I'm getting at just yet, and then finding a way to kind of get out there and especially when you're talking about nature, getting out into nature. And so so noticing those details does seem really sharp. And for those of you who haven't read the chapter yet, but definitely need to, that one it's broken into 8, and it's almost episodic, but also reflective in a way that's really nice, because I don't think you could really read them out of order, but you almost could read them as like bite-sized portions and kind of treat your chapter in many respects kind of like a good chocolate bar. You're not going to sit down and do it like you can sit down and do it all in one sitting. It'd be great, and especially with a good bottle of cheap college wine, right? But I think specifically one of the joys of the chapter is for somebody who has tough time with attention. I was able to sit down and read it and get engaged and enthralled and move my way through piece by piece. And whenever I needed a break, I was able to take a break and come back to it. And I thought that was really helpful. Now, tell me a little bit here. Are there other sort of, I want to say heuristics, right? Or other practices like what you're talking about, like moving, that you might recommend for writers who are, I know for sure, by the way, there are 3 people watching here who had mentioned that they were interested in writing, but nervous or anxiety, like there was some anxiety about the main anxiety they had was that what they have to say, they didn't think anybody wanted to read. And I think that that's heartbreaking to me, because I know the people who wrote them, and I think I'd love to see what you have to say. I love hearing you talk. So I can't imagine, even if it's something, the question's getting long-winded, so I apologize. But
That's
I
okay.
think about the chapters in this book and how many of them are about very basic, routine, everyday hiking experiences. Like, how much can you actually say about eating food that you're tired of eating? But absolutely, you can say a lot about it, and everybody can say something different and say it in a different way and add that reflection. I love reading that stuff. And so So, but my question to you would be like, how do you address, are there other exercises you have, and specifically exercises for getting yourself past, say, I don't know if you've ever had imposter syndrome, but potentially most good writers have. So that's highly likely given how good you write or how well you write. Oh, holy hell, did I just do that here?
It's
Forgive
okay.
me.
You said heuristics.
I
Give
said
them a minute
heuristic.
ago, so it balances out.
You're right. Right. So like those exercises that could either get you writing, get you through writer's block, or get you through imposter syndrome. Do you have
Yeah.
any
Yeah.
pro tips for those folks out there?
Well, yes. And I just want to say, like, I always wanted to be a writer since, since I learned how to read. And but I didn't end up studying writing in college. I started out as a journalism major, and then I ended up becoming a human ecology major, which is a conversation for a different podcast. But uh, and then I read these books like Annie Dillard, like you talked about, but Gorillas in the Mist and In the Shadow of Man, and you know, Cry of the Kalahari, books about people bicycling around the world. And I just thought, I was like, well, I have to go on a really big adventure and have something really, profound, have a really big, profound experience. And so I didn't really write through most of my 20s because didn't have that experience. I didn't think like my everyday life was, worth writing about. And then once I had kids, I just couldn't like hold back the words anymore. I started writing, and it turns out having kids is a big, profound experience, but also it's incredibly mundane and boring too. So,
Yeah.
but it still is worthy of writing about, and everything you do is worthy of writing about. So, don't waste your 20s or your 30s or your 80s or wherever you are by waiting for something worth writing about, because Virginia Woolf wrote an essay about migraines, and like a little thing about a moth dying on a windowsill. It doesn't have to be a big thing. It doesn't have to be a hike across
Sure.
500 miles of mountains. So, number one, if you want to write. And don't think about the audience to begin with. Think about what you want to say and just start writing. And I think it's important to, like I mentioned before, pay close attention to the world, whether it's the natural world or your kids or, whatever it is that you're interested in or what you're focused on, find the details and the attention and focus on that. And by being very specific is how you'll get to the universal, even though that seems kind of contradictory. But if you talk very specifically about your experience, instead of in grand kind of abstract ways, that's where people will be like, oh, they didn't have that exact experience, but they can sense your emotion going through that experience, and then they'll relate in that way.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that point. Can we sit on it for a minute? The idea
Sure.
of writing about the specific is how you get to the universal, because I think that's really, I've never thought about it that way. And I was a writing professor, not creative writing, for MFA. I was the composition and rhetoric corner. And I remember being at many points exhausted and sort of hopeless not hopeless, but helpless with my students who wanted to say something profound. And they would always go to these huge, money is the root of all evil, or there's beauty
Right.
all around us, these sort of universals they're trying to get at, but they end up sort of saying cliche. But in that specificity, I really like that advice, because I think it also can take a lot of the pressure off of us to feel like we have to sum up the entire universe in our writing, when we can really just talk about, and go back to Annie Dillard and the pennies, and sort of that book is a great one for, she's talking about a swarm of gnats, or the three rocks in a waterfall, that kind of thing. There's a spoiler for those of you watching, but Andrea is not on social medias, and I could not be more jealous of that. But there's a woman in Canada who does spoken word sort of poetry, is the best way to put it, and her name is Josie Balka, and they are the most beautiful sort of reflections on the mundane, everyday human experiences. And I think it's because she does such a good job of noticing those sort of universal moments of those times when you feel accepted. Or she has a great one about a dog that if I could live it all over again, I'd hope you'd be there. And it's just an idea of like, I'm really grateful for the time I got with this one dog,
Mhm.
um, but the way she threads it together is, I'd hope you'd be the one at my door wagging your tail. I'd hope you'd be the one who rolls on his back to get belly rubs when I walk into the room. That sort of, these very everyday specific moments she shared with
Mhm.
this dog that speak to anybody who's ever loved a dog before, which I think is, to your point,
Yeah.
I think that's really helpful as well.
Mhm.
Now, you'd mentioned at one point, you said, don't think about the audience, which for a rhet comp person, I could not want to fight you more, because of the number of times that I've seen people who just disregard that. So I know your sentiment, and I'm not really hostile to that idea.
Well, I would say eventually think about the audience, but when you start, do free writing, whatever. Free writing is just the idea of just get your pen moving and don't think about what you're putting down. Don't go back and edit. Don't cross things out. It's like the Natalie Goldberg writing down the bones kind of, just write and write, write, and then go back and look at it and then take things out of that and start shaping it into a piece of writing. And as you're doing that, that's when you start thinking about the audience in the revision and editing stage. But if you start thinking, well, this is going to be published in the Paris Review, and oh, but what if my mother reads it, and then you
Yeah.
just go crazy. You can't worry about that at the beginning, or you won't do anything.
Yeah, I think that's spot on. And also, I mean, it becomes the boogeyman in a lot of respects, right? So that's
Mm-hmm.
when perfectionism starts to shut people down,
Mm-hmm.
and this
Mm-hmm.
idea of value that, I mean, it's kind of the core when people say they don't think somebody would want to read what they have to say. And then it's like, yeah, but this is not for them, at least, especially not at the beginning, right?
Right. Right.
And some of the best writing I've ever put together is stuff that's just been for me, that's saved on a hard drive that will never get published, um, and thankfully so, right? Great. So talk to me a little bit about sort of your ambitions for writing in the future. Do you have other books in your mind? I know you have other projects, and you're also a visual artist, and at least as in terms of some pencil sketches, and sketches is not the right word. They're much better than sketches, but pencil drawings and pencil art. But do you
Mm-hmm.
have on the horizon for you, do you have other written or visual art that you are anticipating, these sort of bigger projects? Are you really content with the essays currently? Which I think I sound like I'm saying something negative about that. I'm not trying to. I'm trying to dig for what's next. That's what I'm trying to do. So
Yes.
forgive my clumsy language.
No, that's fine. I'm in a well, okay, this will make your early your listeners who are early writers feel better. I am in a chasing shiny things stage. I have a manuscript I put together of essays around the theme of motherhood and the natural world that I really put it together during the pandemic, and then I sent it out for a few rounds of attempts at getting publishers, and nobody's bitten so far. And so I'm thinking about revising that. I wrote a novel that I revised a few times and got another round of feedback that I could revise it, or I could just put it in the drawer and start a new novel. I've been working on a nonfiction book about women writers over from basically like about the early 1900s to the or to like basically 20th century women writers who wrote about motherhood and nature, and they're
Mhm.
sort of biographies with excerpts. That's very slow going because you have to find the books and read the books and
Yeah, a lot more labor
excerpt the
intensive.
books.
Yeah.
um, and it's like a real passion project for me, but it's I've been working on it for years and years, and haven't gotten anywhere. And then I have another novel idea, and then I was like, oh, I'm going to write a series of essays about hiking and exploring and travel. And then every time I think of a new idea, I'm like, I'm going to work on that. I'm going to work on that. So I don't know if it's so I'm sort of torn between, like, should I go where my enthusiasm is taking me, because
Yes, you should.
that's where I should work, or should I like finish something?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good. I mean, is this normal? Just as a point of just clarification, is that like the normal state of sort of projects for you? That you have a lot of irons in the fire at varying stages of completion?
That is true. I usually have many things going on at once. I
Okay.
am like
Yeah.
that. I read 5 or 6 books at a time, and
Hmm.
I have, you know, less so now, but I used to do a lot more crafting sort of thing. So I would have quilts and sweaters and,
Yep.
all kinds of things half finished. It's a thing. It's a
Yeah.
real thing.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, but I guess what I'm getting at with that is kind of thinking through like your next whatever it is that's going to happen. It just seems like it will show itself to you
Yeah.
eventually.
Yeah.
And by way of the crafting, check out. Do you know Rebecca Metzoff? Have you met her before?
No.
She has these beautiful tapestries, and she's a CT completer as well. My wife met her on the trail, and she's out of Santa Fe, I want to say.
Mm,
Or no, maybe Durango. Anyway, she's in
yeah.
Colorado, not Santa Fe. She does retreats in Santa Fe, but she'd be a wonderful person to just as an artist to know. And she
Yeah.
runs workshops. And if you're into quilting,
Yeah.
tapestries are not far off from that
Yeah.
either.
Yeah. I definitely need another creative outlet.
Yeah. We in the ADHD world have what we call hobby graveyards. And and the difference between somebody like me and somebody who doesn't is that it sounds like you finish your projects. Whereas if you want 2 gallons of resin, if you want a couple of drones, if you would like an airbrush kit or model cars, I have all the stuff to start. So you just let me know. So you had mentioned as well, you had mentioned sort of reading 5 books at a time. And so I'm hoping let's start by talking about writing as a craft. And maybe if you have a few recommendations for books, writing as a craft for people who are
Okay.
interested in that. And then I'm going to follow up shortly thereafter with nature, hiking, outdoors books that you would recommend to people, either because you love them or you think that they'll get people excited. So let's start with
Sure.
the craft of writing and books you like.
Okay. Yep. Yep. So for really, really early stage writers or people trying to get back into writing after a while, I mentioned earlier Natalie Goldberg's Writing Down the Bones, which I think is a great one for just going from not having written or not having written in a while to getting words on the page and just getting in the habit of writing regularly. Similarly, Anne Lamott's Bird by Bird is another good sort of inspirational getting started writing book. There's a really obscure book that is probably out of print, but you could probably find it for if you want to kind of move on to the next stage. And I don't know why I didn't mention this when we were talking about getting started writing. It's Gabriel Garcia Luca's Writing the Natural Way, and it's about the clustering technique, which I use a lot, especially if I have a very specific large writing project, and it's just basically you kind of get your right brain involved in your writing basically by doing like a visual mind map kind of on paper of the all the concepts and ideas and linking those up together with the writing. So those are some great ones. There are a few books on nature writing that are pretty dry, and I'm not going to recommend them. I
Fair
mean,
enough.
they're fine, but they're really not that much different from any other like essay writing sort of
Yeah,
thing. And I really think the main thing is to read the kind of writing you want to do. Yeah.
that's great.
So, books about hiking. Well, there's a book I want to recommend to you, Jared, called Scraping Heaven by
Hmm.
Mind Freeze. But do you know the author? Do you know who I'm
I can
talking
find
about?
it for us here.
She wrote a lot of books. She wrote a book about the
Cindy
Appalachian
Ross.
Trail. Cindy Ross, yes. And someone gave me that book shortly after the twins were born. And it's about hiking. She and her family, her husband, and their 2 kids hike the Continental Divide Trail over
Cool.
6 years, I think,
Cool.
starting when the younger child was 1. They used llamas. They started with the Colorado Trail, and then they did like one state a year over the next 6 years. And that was like my first inkling, like, oh, there's more to life than daycare
Yeah.
and diapers. Um, So anybody who has kids, who hopes there's life after kids or life with kids, that's a great one. I recently read a wonderful book, again, not going to remember the author, called Windswept.
Windswept?
It's a British author, and she writes about different women writers, artists, of the mostly like 19th, 20th century, who were also walkers, who did like long distance walks, which I didn't even know was something women did back then. Very interesting. Like, I think
Annabelle Abbs Streets?
that's it. Yep.
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 It looks
And
terrific.
it was a wonderful book. It was very engaging and very interesting. Feeling on the spot.
Yeah, I think like, I mean, I'll give you a second or two to think this one through, but I think that one of the things that's great about these specific examples, at least, are, pushing the boundaries of what we think about who is traveling. And so,
Mhm.
with Windswept, what I'm hearing is that this is about women and they're hiking or doing these adventures, kind of like, if who was it? Isabella Bird, A Lady's Life in the Rockies,
Oh, I love
where,
that book.
yeah, it's incredible. And she goes across the Rockies on a horse in like 1860
Yeah.
something
Yeah.
by herself when there were still grizzly bears in Colorado,
Yeah. Yep.
and
It
then
wasn't
sets
even
up
a
shop.
state yet.
Yeah, and she has to like it's what is it, that is the when a book is letters, so the color
Oh,
purple or
epistolatory.
epistolatory. Yeah, I was going to say epistemic, which is not the right word. But she's writing back home to her affluent family, but you have to then take into consideration that she's trying not to get yanked back to England, and just a really incredible book. But this one, Windswept, is changing what we think of as who are the adventurers, because
Hmm.
they
Hmm.
certainly were out there, maybe not in the same numbers, and sort of they probably have to come from some level of money and earlier. But then also scraping heaven, I think, almost sounds like it takes that next step to say that it's not just women, it's also families. And as we know, both from me from life experience and you from life experience and me from reading your life experience, that often women bear the brunt of the added burdens of mothering on trail, that it's just, in many respects, there's much more expected from women on trail. But then having a book that addresses that, or two now in addition to yours, I think that's useful for people to read, because I think it's simultaneously helpful to see that it can be done, but also that there's this world for people to want to hear about it too. There's a
Hmm.
hunger
Hmm.
out there, because it can be tough for people to just get out there. But with somebody hiking with like a 1-year-old, and um, that's incredible. It's incredible.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep. I heard a great story years ago on NPR about a family who did canoe trips, and it was this couple who met on like an outward bound canoe trip, and they decided they were just not going to give up canoeing with their kids, so they would spend 2 months in a canoe, even with reusable diapers. And it was wild. The Scraping Heaven, I'm eager to get a copy of that so I can follow up on it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Your
Cool.
kids will your kids will appreciate it. Well, I have two more I would like to recommend that are actually by friends of mine.
Great.
My friend Amanda Jaros came out with her Appalachian Trail memoir recently, and it's called In My Boots.
Okay.
And another book by Laura Jackson is called Deep and Wild, and it's a collection of essays about West Virginia
Cool.
and life in West Virginia, like possums and bats and mountains, and it's a part of the country we don't hear a lot of positive things about, and it's a really wonderful book
Yeah,
from
it
that in
is.
that sense.
Yeah, West Virginia. I was fortunate to have been there a handful of times, and I went recently with my. Recently, I might have been this year. I went with my 1-year-old, and we went to the New River Gorge National Park, and I had been in that area before when I was the water boy for the basketball team in college, and it is truly one of the most beautiful states, with one of the most understandable, poorly earned reputations for certain things, but also complicated in a million
Mhm,
different ways
mhm, mhm.
by poverty and history, and um, poverty and history and laws that have shaped the land, and tons of different abuses. And um, well worth a visit. And I think that sounds like a great essay collection for people, because I think, kind of to your point, when I've told people about West Virginia or that I went, they just, I don't even think they know what to think. Like if I tell you
Mhm.
that I went to Oklahoma, people are like, "Urgh." But if I say West Virginia, people are like it's a completely different place. So
Yeah.
I think it's a state that deserves more attention. I think that it's by way of hiking, it's absolutely incredible and
Mhm.
beautiful. So I'm glad that you brought those two up. And for those of you watching, I will. It may take a couple of minutes for me to get it up there, but I will put the titles of all of these books in the description later, so that everybody who wants to follow up on these books can. Because I think that, especially the two friends of yours, if we're supporting writers who are on the come up, I think that's also a really important part of this community, that we do that. All right. Other work you'd like to share with us before we hit up some less high pressure questions for you?
And let's go. Let's go on to the next questions.
Yeah, let's talk about your future adventures. And so I have a bit of an adventurous mom myself. She's not as youthful. But she has every plan, so far as I know. She might call me later and correct me, but um, later on in life, there's a high likelihood that she will be on her own. Father smoked for forever and that sort of thing, probably disclosing way too much. But she, I believe, when she is on her own, will end up in the third world doing some type of mission work, right? Well into however long she's on this planet. I think that's likely to be where she's heading. So she has that adventurous spirit, and you seem to have an adventurous spirit as well. And soon you've got your twins are in their 20s or 19.
They're 20. Yep.
Oh, good gracious. So you are about to have a lot more free time on your hand if you don't already. What's on the horizon for you now that your time might be opening up some, and you've got enough information to be dangerous in this world?
Well, that's a good question. We're taking a family trip over the Christmas holidays. The twins are in college, and my oldest son is living in New York City, and they're all coming home. And we're going to go to Puerto Rico for about 10 days. And it will be probably a not very adventurous trip with a lot of, swimming at the beach, a little hiking in the jungle, but pretty low pressure. But I, with the 10-year anniversary of our second Colorado Trail hike coming up next year, I've started thinking about hiking again,
Yep.
which I haven't. I mean, I go on small hikes here and
Hiking the
there.
CT again, or hiking?
Hiking something again. So I was, I'm casting about for a trail that's like maybe half the length of the Colorado Trail.
Yep.
I haven't found one yet, but I did start looking at the Grand Enchantment Trail, which the description's like man-eating cactuses and scorpions and rattlesnakes, and I'm like, I want to go there right now. And everybody I tell about it is like, what are you talking
Yeah.
about? But so I was like, maybe I could do that by myself. And then my husband and I were hiking just like a little trail in a campground, very well marked, and I wandered off trail into the woods. And I was like, yeah, I think you're gonna have to come with me. So I don't just wander into the desert and
Yeah.
get lost
Yeah.
forever. So I don't have specific plans, but I'm ready to make some. I'm
Yeah.
excited to get out there.
Yep. My last guest, Jay France, one of the other authors, he and I spoke at length about the Tahoe Rim Trail, which it's not quite as remote or wild, but one of the more beautiful, surprising trails.
Mm.
And it is 170 miles or so.
Oh, that sounds perfect. Tahoe's
Yeah.
beautiful. I've been there before once.
Yeah.
So.
It was surprising how varied the landscape was throughout too. I sort of think about it in three sort of zones of climate and environment. And so I'd put that on your radar too. And it'd be good for going slow. I mean, it's not a it's the like 165 feet of elevation gain per mile. So it's nothing as difficult as the CT,
Mhm,
except for a
mhm.
few spots can be tough, but highly recommend it, and thought it was a really special experience to see the lake from those angles. So yeah, that's my other pitch. And then the John Muir Trail, I think every hiker
Right.
should do.
Yep.
And so that'd be a good one. All
Yep.
right. Well, what about this? What is one piece of gear that you either refuse to give up on or you will never let leave your pack?
Well, I have a very weird favorite piece of gear that is everyone can afford. It is a like a milk jug or a cider jug, the 1 gallon
Mhm.
plastic jug with the top cut off, but leave the handle on. And you can just use a little piece of elastic cord to attach to your pack. And so you can scoop your water with that and pour it into your bottle instead of trying to dip your whole bottle into the parasite crawling stream. And you can collect blueberries in it. You can wash your laundry in it. You can wash your dishes in it. It weighs almost nothing and it costs almost nothing, and you can recycle it when you get home. So
That's terrific. Yeah.
the best piece of gear you can have. And if the water's just a little trickle, you can still scoop with it.
Yeah.
There's no rim that, gets in the way.
Gotcha. Now, is there a piece of gear that you will never put back in your pack?
A candle lantern.
Really? I carried a candle lantern when I did the Laurel Highlands hiking trail, the one in Pennsylvania,
Yeah.
and I thought it was delightful.
I don't know. We when the first time my husband and I hiked the Colorado Trail, we brought so much stuff. And the candle, I don't know. I think you can get a pretty long-lasting headlamp nowadays that you don't really need the candle lantern.
Yeah, yeah.
But
I
yeah.
actually don't think you need a headlamp anymore if you're hiking in July. You're going to go to sleep and wake
Yeah,
up early. I mean, you need to take one with you, but I
for
think,
an emergency.
yeah, I think most people could. For those of you who don't know what we're talking about here, there's one company that makes this it's a miniature lantern. It's about the size of between the
Like a
size of
toilet
a
paper tube,
that's
maybe.
perfect size. Yeah. And so it has it has a candle in it, it has an automatic spring that pushes it up as it burns. And you lift it up and you can hang it on stuff. And it is absolutely not good through hiking gear. But we did this trail. It was the Laurel Highlands hiking trail. It's not a very incredible trail. Wouldn't recommend it. Yeah. But they had shelters the whole way that you reserved, which is why we did it, because then we knew we could leave our tents at home. And I put in a candle lantern. And so we were staying in shelters, and particularly in the shelters, it was absolutely delightful. It was just enough light. We could play cards. And, but I do think it's funny because if I had taken it on the CT, I think I would have buried it in a cat hole somewhere.
Well, you see in the 90s, like, you tried to get your pack as heavy as possible. So you'd be like, yeah, my pack weighed, although we never weighed our pack, so we don't really know.
Yep.
And then in the, 10 years later, it was like, oh, my pack only weighs 6 pounds. So it was a different
whole different experience.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when I did the trail last year and I hiked it using gear that would have been available in 1974, the backpack I had, I found the ad for it, and it said that it will carry 75 pounds comfortably. And that was before you added an extension hoop to put more gear on
Oh
top.
my gosh.
It was, to be fair, it carried my 40 pounds or so of gear and camera stuff as comfortably as that size of pack could. And it was one of the few pieces of gear I would use again still. But holy moly, it was just, thank goodness we have ultralight gear for old men with bad backs,
For sure.
Yeah. All right. So, favorite backpacking food that you have, like, what's the one thing that you think would sell people on backpacking food or dinners or whatnot? I'm totally putting you on the spot here. I did not give you warning.
I know. You read my book, and so the food was like the real deficit on our hike. I really love sour, chewy candy when I'm hiking. Like, I don't know, I think probably get your saliva glands going and makes you feel less thirsty. But the first time my husband and I hiked the Colorado Trail, we had our Whisper Light stove, and we had, just like Lipton noodle dinners, every night. And there was one time where we missed our resupply, like our box hadn't arrived, so we had to buy stuff at the grocery store, and so our box got sent to the next resupply site, and we just brought all that food with us. So every night we were like, double dinner. We had this whole double dinner song and dance. So I think doubling your dinner.
That's a really good call.
That's the way to go.
Yep, I've had that before where I've take the extra ramen just in case, and then there's always one night when I'm like, I'm going to do the extra ramen early. It's always a good night. So that's a good tip as well.
Yeah.
All right. I gave you plenty of time, over an hour since almost an hour since we talked before starting the stream. Famous person or author you think would be fun
Oh,
to hike with side qualifier, you can absolutely choose a fictional character. It doesn't have to be a real person. So if you
oh
want
my
to go hiking with
goodness.
Amelia Bedelia, you can go for it.
Okay. Fun, fictional, or real character from history? You know, this is a weird one. I am reading this book called Deep Things Out of Darkness: The History of Natural History by
Okay.
John Anderson. He was one of my college professors. And I just read the chapter on Charles Darwin, and I would like to go on a hike with Charles Darwin.
That sounds dynamite. Yeah. Have you read the note when Charles Darwin was depressed, his journal entry? You have
Which
to
one?
I'm gonna
Like
have to pull
Misery, Oh Misery, that one?
no Darwin. You have to. I'm sorry. I know this is bad podcasting, but
You can always edit it
it's
out
just
later.
so funny. He says, I think everybody's going to relate to this one. He says in his journal or in a letter he wrote to his friend Charles Lyell, who I think is who Lyell Canyon in Yosemite must have been named after because he was a naturalist as well and geologist. He said, "But I'm very poorly today and very stupid and hate everybody and everything."
Yes,
Yeah.
that's who I want to go hiking with
Yeah.
because I
I
feel
think
like that a lot.
Yeah, and anybody who's that honest and sincere and letter form and can feel confident putting that on paper, sending it away,
Mhm.
knowing it will take weeks to arrive at its destination. I think that makes a lot of sense. I didn't know he had. I'm assuming that Lyell is the connection to Lyell Canyon through Yosemite, the sort of the almost the last stretch of the John Muir Trail through Tuolumne Meadows is Lyell
Mhm.
Canyon, and I'm assuming this has got to be the same Lyell. That's pretty cool, though. The Benton Mackay planned his AT after reading Aldous Huxley's father's nature book or something. That's why it's on the
Oh.
ridgeline. There's these. It was apparently a small world in the publishing game back then, but
Mm.
and nature as well. Cool. All right, you have some sense of an adventure that you would like to do potentially next year, roughly half the length of the CT. Now, if time and money were no object, you could just take off and do whatever adventure you wanted, and also other limitations in life and whatnot. What kind of adventure do you think you would do? And it's okay if it's half the length of the Colorado Trail. This is what you want. That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, no, that's not my like ultimate dream. Well, what I would most want to do is go on a trip to Egypt
Okay.
and travel up the Nile, bird watching and looking at antiquities and hiking, maybe. I guess there's cliffs and stuff you can hike up. And then, barring that, I'd like to travel around the whole world and see all the countries that aren't super dangerous.
Yeah.
And also Antarctica is very high on my places I'd love
Oh
to see,
yeah.
although I don't feel like it's very ethical to actually go there, but people are
Yeah.
doing it
It's
anyway, so why don't I?
Well, you can always get one of those summer jobs on the research center, and that's
Right.
like doing carbon credits for your travel
Yeah.
down there.
I was gonna apply to one of those when I was younger, and I realized I had no no useful skills because they wanted diesel mechanics and like
Yeah. It's
people who
not
know
too
how to do
late.
things.
Yeah. I did meet a woman who was a summer ranger in um, sand dunes, and then she was very young and just drove buses down in Antarctica in the wintertime. And so, I
Oh,
mean, it was pretty incredible. It stuck with me to this day that she spent her summers in sand dunes and winters on Antarctica, and it was
that
pretty
is
cool.
the dream right there.
Yeah, yeah. It's not too late. And I think that she was a bus driver, and I think that I feel confident you could pick up that skill.
I could. There's a lot of call for bus drivers around my area
There
right
is.
now.
They'd even pay for your
Just
CDL.
drive some terrible school children around for a couple years for practice.
You could find some pretty good gigs or even get one at the I think it'd be fun to be the person who drives seniors from the nursing home to go on their
Yeah,
adventures, and
yeah,
they might be a little cranky but in like funny ways, and
yeah,
I mean it's meaningful work too, and
yeah.
yeah. All right, so you had mentioned something about so Egypt and bird watching, and we should probably have hit on bird watching a little bit. We're running out of time, but I will tell you that I am becoming an amateur. Like I'm, I feel like I get it. And I get it because I started noticing how many hawks there were in the Midwest.
Oh,
And it's
yeah.
like this running joke. And actually, that trip I took to West Virginia with my little one, the wintertime, you can see all the hawks and they stay paired up. So when you see one, you can almost always see two.
Oh, that's
And
cool.
so I think I counted like 48 hawks on my way back from West Virginia.
Wow.
And most recently, I've decided I want to see a kingfisher. And this is the first targeted, like, I spotted owls in my old neighborhood. That was really cool. And now I want to see a kingfisher. It's the first time I've wanted to see a small bird. And I think it's going to be a problem for me. And so in the 2 or 3 minutes we have left, can you offer me some guidance or warning telling me don't do it or absolutely do it? And here's what I recommend.
Okay. Well, first you're gonna probably have to wait till spring
Okay.
because they migrate. Check the field guide, make sure they come to Chicago area,
They do.
which I'm sure they probably do. They come to
Mhm.
Maine, and listen, learn their call because you're going to hear them before you see them. They have this
Gravelly
glorious
kind of.
rattle kind of sound.
Mhm.
They remind me of, do you remember? We used to have a pair nesting. We have a gravel pit on our property, and before it kind of got grown over, they were nesting in the sandbank, and they'd fly over our house back and forth between their nest and the river, and they'd make that call. And it reminded me of in Rikki Tikki Tavi when that bird is like flying around singing after it kills the cobra. They're just so happy and delightful. So learn their call, listen for the call, and then you will see them and spend
That's
time by
perfect.
river.
That sounds perfect. Yep. And
You will see them. I have
as
confidence in you.
by way of the sort of practice of bird watching, it sounds like you would recommend people do it. But
Oh, yes.
okay, because there have been hobbies of mine when people say I'm thinking about doing X, Y, and Z. Grad school, chief among them, and I'm like, do not, do not. What are you thinking? Stop right away. That is a terrible idea. But yeah, so bird watching you would put on a like definitely add
I
that to the
do.
list. Great.
I'm actually at my friend's house using her good Wi-Fi, who is like my bird watching buddy, and she is a brilliant birder, and I'm, intermediate, but birds are beautiful. They're wonderful. I can't believe we don't like drop everything every time we see a bird because they're so magical. They can fly.
Yeah,
Like,
it is pretty
that's
cool.
crazy.
Yeah,
Like, we
with
can't fly.
it's incredible to think about and the ways they can fly from. I mean,
Hmm.
everything from the way that hawks soar to hummingbirds and some of the others, the way a magpie sort of
Yeah.
bounces. And yeah, I think it's really cool. I will say I've decided I hate the way bald eagles fly, and I know that's un-American,
They
but
do just look like a board,
and they're so
like just a.
clumsy and they look labored constantly. Other last birding question, very specific. So we recently built our home and we picked our lot because it is right by our backyard opens to a 50 something acre forest preserve.
Nice.
And there are owls in there. We've seen a little one, but at dusk where you see the outline and you hear it, so that's how you confirm. But I now with the leaves falling and I have a lot of free time, what do you is there a way I can go through the woods? I know I've been looking like I want to see the owl during the day or see owls
Mhm.
during the day. And what I realized when I saw the first set of owls in our old neighborhood is they stayed in the conifers close to the base of the tree.
Mm.
They seem to really like to be close to that, and I'm guessing to break up their silhouette, that kind of thing. Is there any recommendation you'd have for just is it just a matter of me going really slow and taking my time scanning the branches, or is there any other like practice to help me see owls specifically during the day?
Yeah, the best way to see owls during the day is listen for the crows. And if you hear a whole bunch of crows just cawing their heads off, and especially if you see a bunch flying towards a specific area, follow the crows, and they're probably mobbing an owl.
Okay, great. Great.
And then also go out at night, learn your owl call, learn what owls are near, nesting um, or
Get a sense of
traveling
where they
through where
are,
you are,
basically. Yeah.
and learn the calls. You can learn to make the calls, and you can go out, and if you get good at it, you can make a call, and the owl might respond to you and might fly to you.
That's great. This
And
is
read your kids the book Owl Moon so they get into it too.
Oh, that's perfect. Well, my little one and I will watch the Cornell Ornithology Department has a live stream of a bird feeder.
Oh,
And
cool.
so we'll turn it on and watch it sometimes when he just needs to settle down, and he knows some of the birds already, and
Awesome.
it's a lot of fun. This is Elderberry is one of my favorite people, and she is one that if you ever get back out to Colorado, I think you need to meet. And this seems like a really great advice there, Elderberry. Thank you for
Oh,
that.
yes, yes, of course. Join your local bird club. That's where you'll meet the coolest people.
Yeah. Dynamite. Well, this has been the fastest hour of conversation I've had in a very long time, Andrea. Thank you so much for joining us here. Let me share a couple of details with folks. So, if you want to keep up with Andrea's work, a couple of places to go here. Maybe I can get it to stop and pause a little bit so we can see it a little easier. There we go. Got a Substack, Andrea Lani at substack.com, and then online, www.andrealani.com. And I will, again, not just put it in the ticker, I will put it in the description so that you can find your way over to read this work. And the advantage of being a part of either or following either of these is we will get to see when your newest publications come out and follow them along. And I think that sounds really great to me, to be able to read new work that's coming out, especially.
That'll be motivation for me to finish something.
Yeah. I think, take your time, because I will read it whenever it comes out. I will eagerly be the first person to pick up a copy of whatever the next book is. And again, I can't say enough that Uphill Both Ways is, I tell this to a lot of people. This is my little piece of street cred. There it is. When I was doing my PhD, I had two focus areas. I had domesticity and travel. And so the whole idea was home and away. And I got these big, extensive reading lists. And for travel, I read something like 200 travel narratives of varying. That's how I got Isabella Bird and the others down. That book would have been on my list had it been published when I was doing my PhD, but specifically it would have been top 5 favorite books on that list. So for those of you who don't know travel writing, you need to get a copy of it, even if you're not a hiker, which you damn well better be. But it is really so beautifully written. And it was why when I started putting together the collection, you were the first email I sent out, because I knew that your essay, whatever it was going to anchor the book really nicely. So thank you so much for putting together just an incredible essay for the book, and also the book that you wrote as well. And I will be waiting eagerly for your next work of nonfiction or fiction alike.
Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate that.
Absolutely.
And it's been great talking to you.
You as well. You as well. Thank you again, everybody. And this is Elderberry as well. She's also read was one of the first people to pick up a copy of More Than Hope. And then also did the kind favor of leaving it at the Monarch Spur campground for other folks to find the book as well.
Awesome.
So, and then got another copy. And so really, really great and avid reader. Again, another person you need to meet when you go out to Colorado next time. All right.
Thank you, Elderberry.
Absolutely. Well, thank you again. Stick around. I'm going to pop you out real quick, say goodbye to everybody, and then I will stop and say goodbye to you shortly in just a moment. So thank you again, Andrea Lani.
Thank you.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much for stopping in. We ran over just a little bit, but I'm really grateful for everybody who joined us here in the chat and just watched from afar. If you have questions about how to get your hands on More Than Hope, please let me know. Andrea Lani's book is available, widely distributed, and it is absolutely exceptional as well. So I hope you'll follow that Substack. I hope you'll follow the website as well. And I really look forward to hosting our next one. We are working on what the next one will be. With Thanksgiving coming up, we'll take at least a week off, but hopefully we'll have another one the week after Thanksgiving. And so thank you all so much. Have a great week, and I will see you on the next one. Thank you again. Hashtag and Elderberry and Rose. And is there anybody else? I think that's everybody who's in the chat. Thank you all. And